Welcome back to Information Operation. We'll be in the studio again next week. However, CD Media has long been interested in the Balkan region of the world because many conflicts have started there over the centuries. And there's no real difference today as you see a struggle between populists in the region and the Soros influence, if you will. And so we're honored today to have with us the former Prime Minister and President of Albania, Sali Berishës. Sir, thank you for joining the show. I appreciate your time.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me, Mr. Wood.
So I am very interested. I read an article that years ago you saw something in Soros that was extremely interesting to me because many people see him after the fall of the Soviet Union as promoting democracy, open society, but you saw something different very early. Can you tell our audience about that and what your early interaction with Soros was?
It's true. When we came out from the darkness, one of the biggest missing were civil society. We have had a civil society in dictatorship, but totally controlled by the government and the party. So I welcome being aware of vital importance of civil society. I welcome George Soros sponsoring civil societies in Albania. And I highly appreciate it. But after a few years, I realized that he went almost entirely unilaterally. He built a civil society network and put it all under Socialist Party umbrella. That is, we went back to monistic system. That's why I was very saddened with his action. I went in opposition 2005 up to 2013. I was Prime Minister of my country. I left any leading role. I resigned for all my leading roles or executive power on 2013. But what happened, Mr. Wood? OSF Albania drafted his strategy plan without publishing. It was published via different leaks, not via OSF. In a strategy plan for years 2013-2017, OSF Albania put as top priority constitutional change in Albania, judiciary reform, and election reform. After, at the beginning of 2014, OSF Albania organized large roundtables about judiciary reform and constitutional change, led by director of OSF Albania. In addition to that, it created the brain of judicial reform with experts, all of them linked to OSF, none of them representing opposition or were refused. OSF took in charge also to organize the polls, opinions. As a matter of fact, soon came out that they were totally different from previous independent opinion polls. These opinion polls were used for propaganda to support the brain of the reform, which worked, drafted the laws, and brought to the parliamentary commission, dominated entirely by majority. As opposition, we participated in the process with one condition. We put as condition that all drafts of the brain of the reform to be sent to Venice Commission, which is an international body about the legislation.
Yes.
The Commission reviewed the draft. It rejected 38 articles from 62 because they are all about turning the judiciary in a branch of executive in Albania.
So what you're saying, OSF is Open Society Foundation. So you're saying they were unilaterally changing the governmental structure of Albania after the fall of communism on their own, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because I have to clarify, the actual prime minister is a very close friend of George Soros.
Today, Edi Rama, right? Yes.
Edi Rama.
Yes.
He was one of the invitees of last wedding of George Soros. They are very close. So the parliamentary committee sent the draft to Venice Commission. Venice Commission turned back as non-compatible with international principles of a judiciary. They drafted the second draft without opposition. The Venice Commission rejected. At the end, were obliged to sit down with the opposition. We kept Venice Commission recommendation, and with the help of different international actors, the package of constitutional change about judiciary was voted on July 2016. It was based on recommendation of Venice Commission. What happened after that? The government and the brain of the reform left the consensus, which was to vote together constitutional amendment and organic laws for judiciary. They allowed voting organic laws, turning back in these organic laws all articles removed by Venice Commission and by opposition. So they installed in the law mechanism for catching the justice. The end result of this was, first, all leading institutions of judiciary they have as heads brothers of socialist ministers, brothers-in-law of socialist ministers, former prosecutors of Hoxha dictatorship, former member of secret police, former ministers of Socialist Party, all of them in violation of the Constitution.
So you're saying that Soros, instead of building an open society, was installing former communists in the judiciary and throughout the government?
Helping by all means to turn the judiciary of Albania into an executive branch of former Communist Party.
Sounds like what's happening in the United States. Actually,
I would send you an analysis which I published in Slovenia about with details, with a dramatic development on the judiciary. They use the vetting process for witch hunt to expel from judiciary all judge suspects for their political views.
Interesting.
Even they used regional and religious discrimination in this process. Now, may I illustrate you with one example? With the intervention of George Soros mafia, State Department declared as champion, as world champion, one of 10th world champion again in the fight in corruption, Ardian Dvorani. Ardian Dvorani, sir, is a judge which, in his vetting process, showed to violate laws and create wealth in an illegitimate way. Ardian Dvorani, for example, didn't disclose 82,000 euro, but it was accepted as a forgot sum of euros, where others are expelled even for 8,000 euros. Ardian Dvorani, when he was member of board of Alt Telecom, was paid by Alt Telecom half of his flat. But later, he rewarded Alt Telecom as a judge in Supreme Court with 9 decisions in full conflict of interest against the state agencies. This man came 2 years ago as a champion of fighting corruption. In fact, based in Albanian laws, his place is in courtroom to be responsible for what he did. What happened next? After they destroyed the Constitution and the Supreme Court by using top-down vetting process, and we insisted for a bottom-up vetting process, they created a horrible vacuum. Now, more than 100,000 files expect to be reviewed. They will take almost 20 years. No Albanian citizen is more having a basic right of a judicial just process. What next? The very close associate of George Soros, called Delina Fico, the director of East-West Institute, is now in charge to prepare the files for Supreme Court. But this is everything in full violation of Constitution and organic laws, which foresee this is process to be done by advisors of High Court judges and staff and highly qualified staffs. Who are these people recruited by Delina Fico? Delina Fico, sir, is the wife of Minister of Interior and the former wife of Edi Rama, having millions with no competition. But who are her staff? Her staff all are socialist youth recruited by socialist youth and now served to East-West Institute and dealing with the judiciary files, which is a total collapse.
So they are taking in people who are corrupt and have stolen money from the Albanian people, while at the same time hurting their enemies and keeping them out of the judiciary. Am I correct?
It's nothing else than that. If you take, for example, 3 judges of Supreme Court, Sadushi, Pupo, and Pando, 3 of them, for sure, they have had illegitimate wealth and assets, but their vetting is not disclosed, is kept secret. and these jars are kept hostage by the prime minister in order to decide whatever he wants. This is one of the, and looking to all of that, I fiercely opposed, I've criticized Soros, and I asked also publicly to declare him non grata in 2017. I asked publicly to US Congress, to European Parliament, to make laws banning George Soros' political activity out of United States. Imagine, sir, if these billionaires, like, let's take, for example, Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Tim Cook, decide to buy democracies in fragile and developing countries, what will remain as democratic on them? Nothing. Yeah. That's why I asked to ban his political activities, at least in former communist country or out of United States.
So essentially, it's highly organized crime is what we're talking about here with Soros. I mean, it's an organized crime syndicate.
I think Albania, if you could look at international media analysts, is become the only narco state, the first and only narco state in Europe. Is a kind of crime protectorate which goes directly to Prime Minister of Albania, the links. Next to this, my controversy with George Soros was linked with his foreign policy in Balkan. George Soros has its own foreign policy.
Yes.
He promoted the change of borders between Serbia and Kosovo.
Right.
Opening so a Pandora box and using old Milosevic drafts for this change. I fiercely opposed. 2019.
So for our audience, let me just say that for our audience, he basically reopened the conflict of the Balkan Wars of the 90s between Serbia and Greater Albania by doing that. It opened old hatreds. Am I saying that correctly?
He was, sir, keeping borders in the region is vital.
Yeah. Because
the borders in this volatile region could be drawn in different ways.
Yes.
United States were by far the most major contributors to limit conflicts and to keep borders in the region.
Yes.
The idea to change borders between Kosovo and Serbia opened the Pandora box, and we have had several other regions like that. Second, George Soros promote the open society, was working in this case for purely ethnic border lines, which was very unhuman in my concepts. So I opposed to this concept, and I opposed efficiently. But Soros had lobbied in State Department also, and further. And they wanted to ban me, to blacklist me for conspiracy against US foreign policy. I never conspired. Definitely, I kept what I kept with US government while I being prime minister. They didn't succeed because they didn't dare to go up to Mike Pompeo, to Secretary Pompeo, and ask his signatures. Once the power changed, they turned from conspiracy to corruption.
Right.
Accused me for me and my children, banned my entry in the United States with decision based entirely on falsities, slanders, and defamation.
So let me just explain that to our audience. You were blacklisted from entering the United States as basically an enemy of the United States. A criminal is what they called you. And that was done by the State Department. It's run by Tony Blinken, who has connections to the Soros establishment. Correct?
Yes. When I read the Twitter of Secretary Blinken telling that significant corruption and undermining democracy, it came to me as biggest surprise of my life.
Yeah.
I reacted, of course. I wrote a letter to him. I explained that this is George Soros' work, corrupted lobbying of George Soros, corrupted lobbying of George Soros and Eddie Rama. And also, I decided to go to international court and sue for defamation, not for decision. He's in his capacity to determine who should enter or not enter in his own country, as long as he is Secretary of State. But never defamation could be used to exercise official duties, wherever you are.
And I understand Congressman Zeldin has requested from Blinken 3 times now for the information of how you are a criminal, and the State Department has provided nothing at this point, from what I understand.
I'm grateful to Congressman Zeldin, but I assure you and Congressman Zeldin that never will be able to present a single proof, document, or whatsoever about that. It happened to me, Mr. Wood. It's a unique case, what happened. They sanctioned me 8 years after I resigned from any role in leadership, from any executive power. It happened to me. It happened to me after never being accused or sued, whenever in Albania or abroad, for corruption. It happened to me, which a man in the United States, a high official in the United States, at that time, top advisor to Vice President Biden, praised me so much about successes in fighting corruption. It happened to me 3 weeks after the candidate of the party which I supported lost the elections. That is, it was purposely to ruin, to destroy the opposition in Albania.
So they are afraid of you coming back into power and telling Albania what is really happening. Am I correct?
Then I decided to have a comeback. I have a very strong support. U.S. ambassador has become like being a party member in the other side.
Yes, interfering in Albanian internal politics.
Interferes, not only in Albania in general, but in our party's problem in particular. However, nothing, and threatening that we won't recognize, we won't talk with, but still, the will of Albanians will prevail. And I'm confident that Albania will have a very strong and real opposition, and not a facade of a narco state like it is for the moment.
At the moment, it's controlled opposition, in your view.
Is totally controlled by government and is also controlled by many other factors.
So tell us about the coming vote and what's happening with the ambassador trying to stop people from getting visas. I mean, she's basically threatening your party members, correct?
Our party members are threatened that you won't have visa. Many of them are aware that they won't have, but they decided to support. They are aware that the country needs a sovereign opposition, a real one. We have collected more than 60% of all signatures of delegate of the convention. The convention is going to be held on December 11. After we realized all this, after we got signatures and everything, now the puppet chairman, which is in hands of government, declared that he's calling a convention on December 18. No one is responding to him. So, with difficulties, but we are going to have a real opposition in my country and free, keeping the values that we do trust. We are a conservative party, and definitely we stand for our values and for our friends also.
So you're going to take back the party yourself and get back into politics, correct?
I'm going, if the party wants me, definitely yes. But one thing I assure every member of my party, it will be a very open and free race. Whoever would prefer to participate in the race will be warmly welcomed.
Very interesting. Well, thank you for your time. I want to have you back as this goes on and talk more about what's happening in Albania, because it's really a microcosm of, I think, the Soros administration or organization has practiced what they're doing in Eastern Europe for what they're doing now in other Western nations. So it's fascinating to me.
I'm thanking you very much, and I hope that we will succeed. For the moment, Albania is a real George Soros republic.
Him and his son are running the foreign policy there, correct?
Yes,
basically.
Entirely. Even in opposition of U.S. official policy.
Yes.
If you look at Open Balkan, what is for the moment Open Balkan, Mr. Ud? Is just a trilateral alliances between Belgrade, Tirana, and Skopje. Three other nations do not refuse to participate. They do not trust to Vučić, and as a matter of fact, 3 days ago, Mr. Gabriel Escobar stood and told Open Balkan could not work if there are not 6 countries together. Despite that, George Soros, but not only George Soros Foundation, but also some US diplomats which are highly influenced by George Soros, still continue to support a trilateral alliance which produce conflictuality and not at all cooperation.
Right. Well, I want to have you back and talk later about the Trump policy in the Balkans and how Open Balkans would possibly, oppose that. But we can do that another time. I really appreciate your time today, and
thank you very much.
Maybe in a month or so we can have you back in a month or so to talk more about what's happening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you.